I'd like to call to order.
3 counties, 24 cities, working together, accomplishing more than any of us could alone. Whether your roots run generations deep, or you recently moved to Greater Portland, you are a part of Metro.
It'll just be a minute and should be right back.
I'm Jason, and I'm an event production manager. Here at the Portland 5 Centers for the Arts, safety is our #1 priority, not only for our guests, but for our staff members. I'm at the Portland 5 Centers for the Arts, and you're at the Metro Regional Center. The council chambers are located on the 3rd floor. In the event of a fire or fire alarm, please exit through the door in the northeast corner of the room. Go down the stairway to the 2nd floor, exit through the main entrance by the reception desk, and gather in the courtyard outside that entrance. In the event of a medical or fire emergency, please call 911 and notify the security agent at the reception desk. The nearest defibrillator is mounted on the steps leading from the reception desk down to Grand Avenue. Thank you, and come visit us at Portland 5.
All right. I would like to call to order the Metro Council meeting for September 25th, 2025. Georgia, I will now ask you to call the roll for attendance.
Absolutely. Counselor Gonzalez.
Present.
Counselor Nolan.
Good morning.
Good morning. Counselor Rosenthal.
Present.
Deputy Council President Simpson.
Present.
Great. And then Counselor Lewis is excused today. Counselor Wong is excused, and Council President Peterson will be arriving shortly.
Thank you. Before we begin our council meeting, I want to start off with remarks on the National Day of Remembrance for Indian Boarding School Survivors. Counselors, I want to acknowledge an important date next week, the National Day of Remembrance for Indian Boarding School Survivors, which is observed on September 30th annually. Metro has been acknowledging and honoring this important day for several years with the help from our Tribal Affairs Program and the Native Staff Affinity Group. This is a day to acknowledge the historical and contemporary impacts of these institutions on tribes, tribal communities, and Native families. Boarding schools were intentional tools of cultural and familial genocide that had significant impacts to Native languages, customs, and religions. They disrupted connections to land and caused disruptions in connection with families and communities. Ancestors were lost, and generations of descendants of people who have come after continue to be significantly impacted. Some who are impacted don't have access to ancestors, their families, or heritage because of these schools. Today, others who were impacted are working to find and bring their lost relatives home from these institutions. We must remind ourselves these institutions operated for many years within the last century, some even until the late 1960s and 1970s in select states across the U.S. Although the U.S. and other countries intentionally designed and implemented this genocide, tribal communities and indigenous people thrive today. They support those who have survived such horrible treatment. They build good faith with each other, within their communities, and with their neighbors. They are revitalizing and preserving their culture, languages, and traditions that boarding schools sought to strip away. And they continue to add to our rich and diverse society in many, many ways. We encourage everyone listening today to do more research on the history of boarding schools, including the over 10 institutions that operated in Oregon. The Tribal Affairs Program and Native Staff Affinity Group are hosting resources in the MRC lobby for the next week. Staff and leadership, please engage with these materials and resources. I feel, and I can confidently speak on behalf of the council, to say our hearts and our thoughts are with those who have been impacted, including our own staff who have shared personal stories with us in the past to help us understand the gravity of what these schools did. And that we continue to prioritize considering the legacy of these institutions in our work at Metro. And I will take a moment of pause to reflect on this. Thank you. Counselors, you may add remarks if you wish to. Counselor Gonzalez.
Thanks, Deputy President Simpson. This is obviously a very sensitive topic, and having the opportunity to speak at the dais about this in the way that we are doing, I think, is very meaningful. There's a significant amount of restorative justice work that needs to continue happening. And I extend my deepest gratitude to the Metro employees, the Native employees here who have poured their hearts into the long arc of that work and making sure that Metro moves correctly in those spaces. And we use the power that's been afforded to us by voters in a way that minimizes hurt, and does right by families. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Counselor Gonzalez.
Mr. Chair.
Counselor Nolan, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is hard to contemplate, let alone to speak about, the horrors that we know and that we suspect occurred at these institutions. I can't bring myself to use the word school in reference to these detainment centers. But I want to focus more today on the leadership of the tribes within Oregon and within our own walls with the employee interest group and the Native employees here who have not shrunk from demanding that we do more than just pay attention. And I applaud them for that and humbly thank them for the opportunity to be part of that resilience.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, I just want to wrap up here and say, the atrocities that have happened, and I think I've said this every year on this council, that have happened to the indigenous communities, and particularly at boarding schools, should have never happened. But here we are, and we still have to deal with the fallout from that. And I really want to uplift our indigenous staff, particularly Katie McDonald, someone who has gone above and beyond to make sure we as a council are up to speed and know exactly what happened. So with that, I want to close this portion. Counselor, let me finish.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sorry, I couldn't
Counselor
find the
Rosenthal.
raise hand button.
Let me finish real quick.
Sure.
And I'll give it to you. In these times, we need these kinds of folks in our agencies. We need these types of leadership moments, and it oftentimes doesn't come from us. It oftentimes comes from within. So I really want to uplift and thank the Indigenous and Native Affairs team, the affinity group, and everybody who continues to step up and make sure that we have awareness around this and we do something about it. Councilor Rosenthal, you recognize.
Thank you. And I have many, I appreciate that this is brought to us in remembrance at this time of the year. And I have many thoughts. Most of them are pretty sad. But I do want to note that this is a result of colonialist policies over the past 100 and 200 years, and it is something that is not just unique to Oregon. It's also common in the rest of the United States. It was common in Canada and Australia, and New Zealand, and South Africa, and many other places. And so we have to recognize that there's a lot of work to be done to correct the injustices of the past.
Thank you for that, Councilor Rosenthal. With that, I will close out this portion of our council meeting and move us into public communications. All right. Georgia, will you please describe to the audience our procedures that we will use for public communications?
If you are testifying in person, sign up by filling out a blue card from the back of the room and bringing it up to me. If you are testifying on Zoom or by phone, please sign up by using the raise hand function in the reactions or more menus, or by dialing *9. When it is your turn to testify, I'll call your name or phone number. For those on Zoom, click accept to be promoted to a panelist. Your Zoom window will close briefly before you rejoin as a panelist. You can turn on your camera if you'd like. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes, and the timer begins when you begin speaking. If you are testifying in person, there are timers located at your testimony table, on the wall, and on the digital screen. Please state your name for the record before testifying. You do not need to give your physical address. And Deputy Council President Simpson, I do not have anyone who has signed up to testify in advance today. I've not received any blue cards from anyone in the audience, and there are no hands on Zoom.
Great. I will now close public testimony and move us into our consent agenda. We have one item on today's consent agenda. Where are my words today? 3.1 resolution number 25-5536 for the purpose of appointing Eric Matasek to the Future Vision Commission. Can I call for a motion on the consent agenda?
Move approval.
Second.
Great. It's been moved by Councilor Gonzalez and seconded by Councilor Nolan. All in favor, say aye.
Yes. Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. The motion passes. Eric is now on the Future Vision. All right. Moving on to presentations, we have our Office of the Auditor Annual Report Fiscal Year 2024 to 2025. Our first presentation today is from the auditor on his annual report. Please welcome back Metro Auditor Brian Evans to share the findings from his review.
Good morning, Deputy Council President Simpson and Metro Councilors. Thanks for the opportunity today to present the results of my annual report. So this report is intended for the public and council to help understand what we accomplished last fiscal year and what resources it took to achieve them. The report is a demonstration of our values of accountability and transparency by reporting publicly about our performance and using that information to manage our work. Next slide, please. As a reminder, my office has 3 primary responsibilities. The first and one that takes up the most of our time is to conduct performance audits. We also administer a contract for the annual financial audit and administer the accountability hotline, which is where employees and the public can make anonymous tips about Metro's programs and services. Next slide, please. This is a brief summary of our accomplishments from last year. So I'll detail these more when I get into each of our performance measures, but the percentage of audit recommendations that were implemented within the last 5 years met our performance target. The feedback from audited programs exceeded our standard for quality, and our office passed a peer review, which is sometimes known as an audit of the auditor. So we had a team of auditors from other audit shops, 2 from California this year, or actually last year, that came up in December 2024 2024 and spent a week reviewing our policies and procedures, reviewing our audit work papers for the last 3 years, and evaluating whether we met standards. And we did. The report also noted that we had clear policies and procedures, that the links between our audit planning and our work papers was strong, that we had an open office culture, and that our staff was very knowledgeable. So I appreciate those efforts for the external review. It helps us comply with the Metro Code, and it also recognizes our efforts to be aligned with our professional standards. Next slide, please. So the annual report includes 5 performance measures. 2 are what I consider efficiency measures, and 3 are related to effectiveness. And I'm gonna detail each of these in the next slides. Next slide, please. So the first measure of efficiency is to look at how long it takes to complete an audit and how many audits we completed in a given year. So we completed 5 audits last year. That's similar to what exactly the same as what we did last year and more than the previous 3 years. Those 5 audits took an average of about 1,700 hours to complete. As you might imagine, the scope and complexity of the audit topics that we take on can really influence the number of hours it takes to complete them. For example, one of the audits last year was about 1,400 hours and the other was about 2,200. So pretty big range there, but actually smaller than in previous years. Next slide, please. These are the 5 audits that we completed last year. One was a follow-up on the recommendations made in the 2020 Research Center audit. 2 focused on internal operations related to performance measurement and analyzing the organizational structure. We also covered cybersecurity risks and an audit of one of Metro's longest running programs at the visitor venues, the First Opportunity Target area. Next slide, please. Looking at another measure of our efficiency, this is a look at how many audits were completed per full-time equivalent employee. My goal is to have 1.5 audits completed per FTE, which is actually higher than the industry standard, but I like to have kind of a challenge goal there so that we can always think about ways to be more efficient. As you can see, we haven't met that 1.5 standard, but we are on the upward trend, and I'm excited for next fiscal year to keep improving our efficiency. Next slide, please. This is the first measure of effectiveness. It's used to kind of assess how our work was distributed around the agency. It gives me a sense of the number of audit hours in relation to the size of the departments. The graph is pretty busy, which I apologize for, but I'm going to try to make some sense of it. So the departments and venues on the right side of that average line, so those in the pink dots, are departments or venues that had more than the average number of audits per $1 million of expenditure. And the ones in the green on the left side of the average line are the ones that were slightly below. As I said, I use this metric to make sure that we're giving kind of equal coverage and not focusing too much on one part and not other parts of the agency. And it's really key when I decide what audits will be put on the audit schedule. So for this current fiscal year, I have 2 audits on the schedule, one of the Oregon Zoo and one of the communications department that are going to move some of those green dots closer to that average line. Next slide, please. This is another measure of our effectiveness. It's looking at feedback from audited programs. So after we finish an audit each year, we ask the departments that were involved to rate our process, the staff that they worked with, the final audit report, and then their overall satisfaction. My goal is to have at least a 4 out of 5 satisfaction level, and we've met that in each of the last 5 years, which indicates relatively high satisfaction with our work. Next slide, please. And then the final measure of effectiveness is looking at what percentage of our audit recommendations are implemented. This data is based on 2 different data points. One is self-reported by departments and venues each year. So each January we ask venues and departments that have outstanding recommendations to self-report on their status of recommendations. And then typically 2 to 5 years after an audit, we'll do our own assessment and make our own conclusions. The expectation is that recommendations made 5 years ago will have about 75% implemented. And you can see that met that performance target this year and the trend is good. Generally, the idea is that as you move from right to left in this graph, the percentage gets higher as you get more time to implement those recommendations. I want to thank management for their efforts to implement the recommendations that we've made in our reports. Next slide. So that's a summary of the performance measures I used. This is a quick overview of the resources it took to accomplish those things. I'll look back at our budget for the last 5 years. So in the last year, majority of it was for personnel, the people that do the work. Total expenditures were up by 2% overall, and that was really driven by a pretty big increase in materials and services that was caused by us having 2 Hatfield Fellows last year that was made through a contract with Portland State University. Personnel costs actually decreased slightly by 2% last year, and that was mostly due to a vacant position in the office for most of the fiscal year that's now been filled. Next slide, please. Moving forward, looking ahead to the current fiscal year, we've published 1 audit that we presented to council last week. We have 4 other audits in process and then 3 more planned. So it's a busy year, and you can expect us to be in front of you all again shortly to present some more audits. Next slide, please. One of the requirements of hosting an accountability hotline is that you need to report publicly on the metrics associated with that. State law requires some public reporting on the types of issues identified, the volume of concerns, and kind of where those things are falling in the organization. So these next 2 slides have some data on the accountability hotline. Last year, there were 51 reports made to the accountability hotline, which, as you can see, is significantly higher than the average over the last 5 years. Reports made about Metro's visitor venues, so the Oregon Convention Center, Portland 5 Centers for the Arts, and Expo Center made up the majority of those, 69%. And most of those within the visitor venue grouping were related to the Portland Center for the Performing Arts. Agency-wide concerns were the next highest at 16%, and then concerns around the Oregon Zoo and solid waste made up the remaining reports. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, actually I have 1 more on that one, but it's okay. Of those 51 reports, 39 were successfully investigated. 12 didn't provide enough information to investigate, were out of Metro's jurisdiction, or were unfounded. Of the reports that were investigated, 4 were substantiated, and 35 were unfounded or were inaccurate. Of the 4 that were substantiated, corrective actions were taken in 3, and 1 audit was initiated as a result of a substantiated report. And now to the final slide. Thank you. We also track kind of the response time because that's a pretty key metric in terms of giving people credibility that their reports will be taken seriously. So the benchmark data is that it takes 40 days on average to complete an investigation of a report. And as you can see, Metro met that target in 4 of the last 5 years. That big, larger bar on the left in fiscal year 2021 was caused by several reports that were made about similar issues, and they were pretty complex, so it took longer to investigate and conclude those. The response times in more recent years, to me, indicate good value for money, with human resources having a dedicated investigator to investigate personnel concerns and be able to respond quickly. Next slide, please. That concludes my presentation. I want to thank all the employees in my office who are sitting behind me for their work last year, and be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Auditor. Councilors, any questions for the Auditor? And thank you to Deputy Council President Simpson for taking over the beginning of the meeting. I was in the I-5 bridge meeting. We've got Councilor Rosenthal.
Yeah, just a brief one. Thank you, Auditor Evans. First of all, I want to say I appreciate all the work that your office does and the audits. They are really important in the kind of complex organization that we have with the kind of complex things we do, because it's hard to keep track of everything. My only question on the last slide, the variability in time to close the reports. I noticed in 2021 it was 60 days. Was that due to a COVID? Was that a COVID impact? I mean, there's quite a variability from 60 days in 1 year to 13 days in another year to a much more reasonable report we had this last year. So I just was wondering about the variability.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councilor Rosenthal. believe the response time, or the response times at that time, I would associate with two variations. One is the specifics of the cases that were reported. So I think we had one pretty significant incident that needed to be investigated that year, and multiple reports were made about it. And so all of those response times associated with, more than one case then also drive up the average. And you're right that that was the year that COVID hit. And so I think that was a time where resources were relatively more constrained to follow up on other reports. And so I think that combination of those two things is likely what's driving it there. I don't believe it was a COVID specific complaint though that drove, like one specific COVID complaint drove the average.
Thank you.
Counselors, any other questions? Seeing no hands raised, thank you. Much appreciate all of the work, and to your staff. It's a lot of work to do all of this, so.
Great, thank you, appreciate the time.
Thank you.
All right, counselors, we will move on to the next part of our agenda, the Supportive Housing Services County Fiscal Year 2025 Quarter 4 report. Each quarter, our Supportive Housing Services team shares with us the findings of the report submitted by our 3 county implementation partners. Today, staff will share an overview of those reports, and at the end of the presentation, we will also receive an update on the progress of the Tri-County Planning Body, which has made some movement towards regional goals. Here to walk us through the county reports, we've got Yanessa Delgado, Supportive Housing Services Division Manager, and RJ Strangeland, Housing Finance Manager.
Stangland. Everyone puts an R in there.
Oh, you're not strange, you're just Stange.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Autocorrect.
Counselor Rosenthal, would you like to put your hand down?
No,
Or did you have a question?
no, it just got left up, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Yesenia.
Thank you. Good morning, Council. My name is Yesenia Delgado. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm the Supportive Housing Services Division Director. Today, we are elated to be bringing you all an update on the work that's happening with SHS. Metro's role is to provide oversight for the SHS fund, and we also operate in this unique space to support with systems integration and acceleration to ensure we are fulfilling the promise that we made to Metro voters of regionalizing a homeless system of care. I am joined today by RJ Stangland, our finance manager, and today RJ and I will be presenting on the SHS Quarter 4 reports, including an update on the work made possible with SHS funds at Washington, Multnomah, and Clackamas County. We will then also be sharing some regional highlights on the progress we have made to convene across systems and further advance regionalization. The quarterly reports at a high level provide us information on how the counties are tracking towards their quantitative and qualitative work plan goals, as provide us additional information on highlights of the work that's happening. Quarter 4 is unique, given that it is the last quarter of the year and provides us the first look at our year-end figures, so we can evaluate how well we did as a region against the regional goals that we set for that year. Just a reminder that the county annual reports, providing a deeper dive into programmatic and financial analysis, are due October 31st of this year. That then starts the process for the Oversight Committee's regional report. So we will be coming back and engaging you all on further wrap up for the closure of fiscal year 25. As we close out fiscal year 25 and we're in fiscal year 26, that means that we're about halfway through the lifespan of the measure. And we have learned a lot of lessons during the startup phase. Today's presentation is focused on the transformative work that is happening and how the goals and commitments under our current governance systems are operating. As y'all engage in discussions this fall around the future of SHS and how we can align resources, streamline processes, speed up coordination, and help the system operate more smoothly, our hope is that this presentation serves to ground us in what has worked really well and what we need more of, and where there might be opportunities to make SHS better in the future. Now, if we go to the next slide. Like I said, today's presentation will be focused on Quarter 4, which covers the periods of April 1st through June 30th of 2025. We will then cover progress that we've made towards the regional goals. We'll then follow by county progress and highlights. RJ will be providing a financial update. We will then be providing some updates on the recently formed SHS division. And then together we'll be doing some looking ahead so you know what council engagement will look like this fall, and then leave some time for questions at the end. Next slide, please. So this slide here shows the regional progress made towards the fiscal year 25 annual work plan goals. Just a quick reminder that work plans are submitted every year by the 3 counties, and they provide quantitative and qualitative goals that are in alignment with their county's local implementation plan, the Metro SHS work plan, and it provides numerous qualitative and quantitative goals. We'll cover more of the qualitative goals when we come back later this year as a follow-up to the annual report. But in the quarterly reports, what they consistently report on are these 4 quantitative metrics, which are permanent housing placements, rapid rehousing placements. Both of these interventions are placement programs. Homeless prevention, which is supporting households not lose their housing, and then shelter units. I'm excited to share that all counties made exceptional progress this year, and as a region, we were able to reach all of the goals that we had identified for these 4 areas. For example, here you'll see that the PSH goal, we were able to house 1,351 households, and the 132% means that we were over 32% of the goal. So that's what you see in these sections, that we were indeed over the regional goal that we had set forth. So what does this mean for our regional goals? As we have been discussing in SHS reform conversations, we did not have a regional vision at the inception of SHS, but we did have, some regional goals. 2 of those cornerstone goals are to connect at least 5,000 households experiencing homelessness into permanent supportive housing, and to stabilize at least 10,000 households at risk or experiencing homelessness into permanent housing. And with the progress that you see here on this slide, where that puts us in terms of where we're at, is that we have housed 5,351 households into permanent supportive housing. So that means with the data that we currently have available, we have met that 5,000 goal. Additionally, we have prevented over 18,000 households from entering homelessness by providing them eviction prevention, homeless prevention services. And we have placed 3,440 households into a rapid rehousing program. When you combine both of these metrics, which is what we would use to quantify towards the 10,000 goal, it also means that we have indeed met that goal at this point in time. Like I said earlier, we're about halfway through the measure, and given that we have surpassed these 2 main SHS goals that we had been working really hard to build towards, it really, as we head into this next season, is a really good timing to be engaging around what are some additional goals, KPIs, metrics that we want to be tracking. Next, I will just pivot over into some brief county by county performance slides and highlights so you kind of see where each county is at. So as you see here, Clackamas County exceeded 3 out of the 4 quantitative work plan goals. Given the need to sustain programming within their current budget, the county paused new regional long-term rent assistance vouchers to preserve services for existing participants. This impacted their ability to meet their original goal to house 275 households in PSH, which they ultimately fell short on. The regional long-term rent assistance team pivoted to program stabilization, increasing coordination meetings, issuing provider support tools, and regionalizing landlord recruitment and retention to expand housing opportunities. Now that the initial build-up phase is behind us, we are hearing more and more this common theme from county partners around needing to sustain what we have and not seeing as many new programming, new placements. So in case you're wondering why this slide indicates that, Clackamas did not meet one of its goals, but in the previous slide we met all of our regional goals, that is because when we aggregate the progress of all 3 counties, and you'll see here shortly that the 2 other counties exceeded their goals in this area, that's why we as a region were able to still surpass the goal that we had here. So even though Clackamas County did not meet that goal, they far exceeded their prevention goal, as you see here, supporting nearly twice as many households as they set out to in the beginning of the year. And if you digged into the quarterly reports, I'm sure you saw this, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of program updates that happened in quarter 4. Clackamas County celebrated the grand opening of Clackamas Village, which is a 24-bed transitional housing facility designed with trauma-informed elements and shared community amenities. The design earned recognition from Governor Kotek and described the facility as caring in action. Clackamas Village provides 24/7 case management and wraparound support, advancing the county's annual work plan, goal and equitable housing access for people. Clackamas County in quarter 4 also launched a pilot medical respite program to serve individuals experiencing homelessness who may need additional care following hospitalization. 5 fully ADA accessible beds are set to open in 2026 with the plan to expand to 20. Participants will receive medical care from nurses and medical assistants addressing medical needs and supporting recovery in stable environment. This achievement fills a critical gap in the housing and health system, something that I actually will be talking as well about in future slides. So really exciting work that's happening out in Clackamas County, and we can't wait to hear more about where these 2 initiatives lead. Next slide. I will pivot over to Multnomah County's fiscal year 25 progress, and as you see here, they successfully met all of the 4 core quantitative work plan goals that we are measuring. There was significant success with PSH in particular. I don't know if y'all remember in the past, I've talked to you all about how they hadn't been able to reach those goals for PSH given some of the systemic challenges that they were facing. Their goal for this year was 300 households, and they placed over 672 households into PSH this year. Some additional program highlights just for you to know about Multnomah County is that they invested almost $14 million to strengthen their permanent supportive housing. They raised the annual per household services rate from $15,000 and $17,500 for culturally specific family and PSH building projects. So these are the set amounts that counties fund providers per household for them to receive permanent supportive housing. So this funding helped address immediate participant service needs, staff burnout, and supported in program stability and staff retention. Multnomah County also in quarter 4 celebrated the opening of a new SHS-funded drop-in center in North Portland, operated by Do Good Multnomah. This organization will provide case management and housing navigation services to the local community. The county has also begun implementing a new outreach strategy, assigning geographic zones and population-specific teams, and launching a standardized reporting structure in conjunction with this opening. This included with a new outreach survey, weekly coordination meetings, and the announcement of their new homeless management information system will really support with data-wide collection and accessibility in Multnomah County, which is something that we have been really needing. So again, really great progress in Multnomah County. These are just some really great highlights happening there. And the next slide, as you can imagine, goes into Washington County's progress. As you can see here, they also exceeded all 4 of their quantitative goals. You might remember from my quarter 3 presentation, they did submit a budget amendment and a work plan amendment to the Oversight Committee earlier this year. So that did bring their goals down a little. And then with that, they were able to exceed where they were at in terms of their placements and shelter units that they conducted. Some additional highlights about Washington County is that in quarter 4, one SHS-funded capital project came into fruition, which is the Hillsborough Recovery Center. This is one of the 2 centers for addictions triage and treatment locations. The Hillsborough Recovery Center celebrated a small grand opening in May with a larger celebration planned for the fall when their 2nd location opens. A supportive housing services provider, Project Homeless Connects, operates out of the facility to support with ongoing integration of health and homeless services and to support individuals who are referred by other providers and connecting them into housing opportunities. Additionally, state and SHS funds were also been leveraged to sustain ongoing shelter capacity. So this included expanding on 60 pallet homes, otherwise known as safe rest pods, While these temporary sites have been critical in scaling emergency shelter, they are slowly ramping down, and Washington County is actively working to identify permanent locations to offering low barrier shelter, and recently secured some additional funding to support with this transition to continue to advance the need for shelter in their county. So that really wraps up some of the individual county by county progress and highlights, and I will pass it over to RJ to dig in deeper into the finances.
All right, next slide, please. RJ Stanglin, Housing Finance Manager for Metro, UC Pronouns. And to start, I'd just like to kind of just show the history of the tax collection over the prior fiscal years. We landed a little under $325 million for fiscal year 25, which is the dark blue. When you compare it to the others, with the light green being an outlier, so we don't really use that data because that was the first year and a lot of things were going on. But you can really see that there is a pattern that does show some reliability, but with each prior year from the start of the high point of fiscal year 23, it has been steadily lower. I would like to point out that the fall 2024 forecast did nail where we landed, but I also promised the economists at Metro that they are celebrating that win, but it is not indicative of the forecast being that reliable. They were only off by 0.5%, like 0.6%. The variability of this tax makes that not as reliable as you can in future years. What we can say is that we will probably be similar to what we have for fiscal year 26 that we have now, with some fluctuations. Next slide, please. This shows the regional spending by the counties year over year from the start, and you can kind of see the exponential growth. From year 1 to year 2, it was over 250% growth, then it went to about double, and then we're about 150% growth. But the counties also understand from the fall 2024 forecast that the revenue is not exponentially growing anymore. So the spending is going to tailor down, probably around similar levels to year 4. Just so that they can maintain the programs that they are prioritizing. Next slide, please. So this shows where they're prioritizing as a region their dollars. The largest spending areas are permanent supportive housing with a little under 122 million. Then it's safety on and off the streets with 116 million. System support costs with a little over 66 million, with almost 43 million being built infrastructure investments. And then lastly, the largest is rapid rehousing with 40 million. Next slide, please. Now we'll go into each county and how they have been tracking their spending and year over year growth. On the left is their spend down plan versus what actual expenses were reported on. And on the right is the comparison from last fiscal year to this fiscal year. So as you can see, Clackamas has been linearly steady with their spending. Their original spend down plan was created prior to the fall 2024 forecast. So they really have been sticking to a spending that will be sustainable. You will see that their spending over year has increased by about 130% from last year, which is on pace of what they're accomplishing. I will note that Clackamas does a soft close of their quarterly reporting, so that 63.9 million is probably low, and when they give the annual report, they will update that with the actuals, which will probably be the best estimate they've given me so far is around 73.5 million. Next slide, please. So for Clackamas, the largest program spending areas include permanent supportive housing with almost 50% at 33.7 million. Then safety on and off the streets at a little over 12 million. System support costs at 10.5 million, with 6 of that being built infrastructure. And eviction prevention was $7 million. Next slide, please. Next up is Multnomah County. Multnomah County tracked their spend down plan. As the needs of Multnomah County increased, they were following their original spend down plan. They were actually a little bit over their quarter 4 benchmark at 216 or 217 million versus the 204 budgeted. You'll see on the right that their growth has also significantly increased with a little over 150% spending from last year to this year. Next slide, please. Multnomah's largest spending areas include safety on and off the streets at just under $87 million, or 40% of their budget, or of their spending. Then it's permanent supportive housing at a little over 45 million. Then regional strategy implementation at just under 25 million. And then rapid rehousing just under 24 million. Next slide, please. And last but not least, Washington County. They also followed a similar trend to Clackamas, where originally their spend down plan had a ramp up where it would accelerate in Q4, but because of the fall forecast, a lot of the counties reassessed what their priorities were, and their actuals are more linear. They are a little bit under their benchmark, but as you can see, they've also increased their spending from last year to this year by about 140% with their priorities, which the next slide will show what they are. Next slide, please. So for Washington County, permanent supportive housing was their largest program spending area at 43 million, a little about a third of their expenses. Then system support costs at a little over $40 million, with 34.8 being built infrastructure. And when we met, they had a great link on their website showing their capital investments, which I encourage people to explore. It's a great report. Then it will be safety on and off the streets at 17 million. And lastly, they invested a little over 14 million in rapid rehousing. And with that, I'll give it back to Yesenia.
Thank you, RJ. And if we go to the next slide, this is really my last set of updates around other work that the SHS division here at the Housing Department is working on. So this slide provides an update on the on-demand training programs and the training academy at Portland Community College. The Metro's regional capacity team has been working closely with county partners to implement one of the Tri-County Planning Body's training goal. As you all know, the Tri-County Planning Body has developed a regional plan consisting of 6 different goals. And this last fiscal year, the team did significant research to understand what types of trainings are most needed by housing service workers and to identify whether a training like that existed here in our region. The research demonstrated that there is not a training program in our region that meets all of the training needs identified by Metro, the county, and service providers. So to help meet some of those immediate needs for the providers that needed trainings, Metro launched a pilot project in January to have service providers assess the effectiveness of virtual on-demand trainings available from the National Alliance to End Homelessness and Corporation for Supportive Housing. These trainings cover basics like trauma-informed care, fundamentals of housing first strategies, and effective strategies for street and outreach. Staff at 15 agencies in all 3 counties took the trainings and provided feedback, and we learned that the National Alliance to End Homelessness trainings are pretty effective in helping service providers get the training that they need to do their work. So building off the successful results from that pilot, Metro is launching a second round of trainings where providers in the region will be able to access up to 3 trainings that Metro will cover until our budget runs out for that. Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, the regional capacities team research didn't identify a local need. These are national trainings that providers were evaluated. So from that, and then doing them additional research, they were able to identify that Portland Community College has a pretty great and regional footprint for being able to conduct trainings here in our local area. So Metro decided to work with Portland Community College because of its regional footprint, like I said, and it's also the most affordable in our region. So we have signed an IGA to develop a series of introductory level courses on the fundamentals of housing, case management, and other basics of the housing system. These 2 20-hour courses will be available for up to 24 people and are intended to support frontline housing service workers in the first 6 months of their careers. Trainings will be focused on housing first, trauma-informed care, and working with clients in the broad housing system. We are currently developing the courses, conducting broad community engagement to ensure we have provider feedback, shaping them, and plan to have the first cohorts enrolled before the end of the year. In the future, we are also looking to develop potential courses in leadership and management to ensure there's a strong leadership pipeline in our service provider agencies. So our service providers are really who is doing most of the incredible work, so being able to find a way to support them is critical. So really exciting work happening here, and we're excited to bring more updates to you in the future about this. The next update that I have for you all in this next slide is an update on the healthcare systems alignment work. So healthcare systems alignment is also one of the Tri-County Planning Body's regional goals, and Metro's leadership convening and seed funding are essential, and this regional collaboration is saving lives and strengthening SHS. Healthcare and homeless have historically been really deeply siloed systems, each incredibly complex and a lot of times, kind of speak their own language. So you see on this slide here some of the projects that we're using to support some of these historical challenges. The Metro Housing Funded Housing Team integration is a critical component helping the SHS workforce get the information and pathways they need to connect participants, particularly those in population A, with the healthcare that they need. Now a worker, instead of calling every hospital to find someone or struggle to figure out what a participant's medication might be, now there's a table funded by the Metro funded team at HealthShare where people can come and talk about participants' needs all in a coordinated way. And in addition to the Thriving Case conferencing work, the team at HealthShare that we work with also secured a historic data sharing agreement between HealthShare and Multnomah County, with more in the works with the other two counties. Data analysis is still underway from these agreements, but what the early indications are, looking at the health case conferencing, is that it's achieving its aim, reducing utilization of the emergency rooms and increasing connections to primary care and Medicaid benefits. This is both a success for the participants who get their needs met, but also for the systems that we have. Additionally, we also recently partnered with HealthShare and to release a Medicaid 101 webinar that was attended by over 200 frontline workers to learn more about Medicaid. So we are doing some education work and sharing that out with the broader community and finding other ways to interact with folks. In addition to all of this work, Metro will continue to convene partners to engage in medical respite coordination plans to have more efficient use of the existing resources and improved outcomes for participants. We are developing braided funding models for sustainability, but Metro's early funding continues to play a crucial role, especially as health and homeless response systems are facing really tough times due to federal disinvestment in policy. So we are moving with urgency, but also at the speed of trust here. We have strong momentum that we have built, and all sectors and partners here are really engaged and leaning in to explore future regional hub models and other opportunities here that we could have. Next slide. Yeah, so this is really my final update for you all, which is around oversight and accountability. The Housing Department implements multiple administrative oversight functions for the measure, including monitoring. Monitoring is the practice of collecting and analyzing information about how homeless services are operating and understand their implementation practices and procedures to ensure that activities are in compliance with the requirements that we've set forth in IGAs, the Metro Work Plan, LIPs. So I am pleased to share that we have reached monitoring agreements for this fiscal year with all 3 counties. We are monitoring the counties this year on population A and B implementation to see how it's going, what are the actual processes that they are implementing to ensure that they meet the requirements set forth for population A and B. We are also monitoring counties on their financial structures and systems that they have in place for invoice providers and other systems that they conduct. In August 2025, Metro started conducting the monitoring visits, and the summaries from these reviews are in progress and will be shared with the counties for review and response in October. And my next update is around the data sharing agreement. So in spring 2025, Metro and the counties finalized the data sharing agreement that enables Metro to receive raw and disaggregated data directly from counties' homeless management information system. Per the executed agreement, Metro received data sets submitted by all 3 county partners in August 2025. The Housing Department staff are in the process of reviewing and validating the data sets with previously provided information and doing counts. Staff have also started to analyze the data to identify regional trends to support us in having a fuller picture of what is happening with SHS, and also so we have better data as we're making decisions around the future of SHS. And the next slide that I have for you all is really just an overview of future council engagement as it relates to the Metro's Housing Department in this next season. So for the past 18 months, Metro has engaged with a wide range of partners and interested parties to better understand the challenges and opportunities across the regional homeless system. In late July, Metro staff provided the Metro Council with a memo outlining potential next steps. Staff also committed to developing a SHS reform work plan for council consideration this fall. Based on partner input and from our advisory committees, Metro staff is currently in the process of creating that work plan that includes potential changes that are focused on practical, near-term, and technical changes to streamline oversight and improve outcomes for people served by SHS that we will be bringing to you at a later date this fall, as you can see in these dates here. This fall, we will also be having some touch points around the regional housing coordination strategy and to provide you additional updates on the work happening with SHS. So with that, that really wraps our presentation for you all today. We're happy to answer any questions, and we also have some other members from the housing department here who might jump on in for answers.
Thank you. I just wanted to kick this off with just a big round of appreciation. I don't want to speak on behalf of the entire council, but I feel like my anxiety level around this program has been reduced. We have made such significant progress with our county partners. We have made significant progress on the actual barriers that have gotten us where we are today with, being able to articulate better how the money is being used, how it's benefiting people, how we are going to look at reforming the system and what exactly those barriers are. I'm not saying we're done, but it is just a different presentation. And I know that the counselors all probably have questions, but I feel like the questions are going to be very much more specific and very much more with the asterisk of good job, right? It shouldn't even be an asterisk, it should be an exclamation point. So I just want to relate that to you, that this is a completely different point in which you come to present to us than in the past, and just kudos to everybody who's been working so hard. So, counselors, questions?
I'll just start real quick before we get it going. Thank you. Thank you back there too. I know y'all worked hard. We're finally, at least for me, I see clarity in how we're moving with this. And I really, really, really want to lift up the fact that we are like proactively getting out there and getting the education touch points out there for folks to get engaged with this so we can fill those provider gaps. Kudos, kudos, kudos. And again, I can't wait to hear the next update and see where those because thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Liam. Thank you.
Counselor Gonzalez.
Thanks, President Peterson. Also want to say thanks. And it's kind of weird to be saying thanks for things that we should have been doing, but unfortunately, that's the state of the system that Metro, when we entered this space, that was the state of the system, and no doubt that significant leadership was required. So thank you. And Yesenia, thank you for always responding to my emails and my questions. So I love that. I have three questions from the report, and hopefully they're pretty quick. The first is under Multnomah County's reports. Does that include numbers from the mayor's plan and the money that was proportioned to the mayor's office through the county for the 15 million? Does that include that, or is that a separate data?
You're referring to the earlier $15 million investment that Metro Council provided. Yes, that you see that integrated into a lot of those funds went to their safety on and off the street investments. Okay. So you see that reflected in their quarterly report there.
Thank you, perfect. But that doesn't include the full investment from the city of Portland that might be SHS funding?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would include really the programs that maybe are working together and are both funded by those funding sources, but it wouldn't include programs or interventions that are solely funded with City of Portland funding.
Okay. I want to park that for my last question,
Yeah.
because there's thoughts that I have around that. Question number 2 is kind of like a more region-wide question. It's good to see PSH kind of hitting the ground, like starting to get its momentum. Do we have a sense for people that qualify and need PSH, like at a regional level? Like, what's their wait time, basically? Like, I'm really curious in that. Do we have any sense? Do we have the data to potentially ever communicate something like that?
Yeah, I'm really excited you're asking that question today and not like months ago, because with the data sharing agreement that we just received, that is one of the potential counts and data analysis that we can do, is see how long it's taking people to get connected into services. So although I don't have that time length for you today, that is something that we could explore and get over to you all.
Yeah, and I think from the president's work group that President Peterson led, I thought that was one of the things that kind of emerged from that, right? Like, how long does someone have to suffer in, a condition where they are chronically homeless, they have the disability, 3 years, 4 years, I don't know, right? I think like we're kind of pulling some numbers out. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Before I move on to my next question, do we have a sense of how we will determine what those new kind of indicators that we want to measure are? Is that up to like the oversight committees? Is that up to the council? Is that determined in our IGAs? That unfortunately our relationship with the counties has been, you can only measure what we agree for you to measure, essentially. And so a number like that might be something that folks will feel creates a set layer of accountability that is scary or something. So I just want to get a sense of what is the process that we are able to take with all this data that we have now to kind of create some of these higher level indicators and benchmarks.
Interim Director Liam Frost just came forward to help answer their questions.
Good morning, Madam President. Good morning, Council. For the record, Liam Frost, Interim Director of Housing. He, him, his pronouns. Thanks for the question, Councilor Gonzalez. That is a very timely question. We've been talking about it for about 18 months. We'll be returning to this council at the beginning of October into mid-November, towards the end of November, where we are going to be presenting a package of systematic changes to some of the SHS program, which will include key performance indicators as well as goals.
Thanks, Liam. So I'm going to try and reflect what I heard, and hopefully so y'all have been thinking about it for 18 months. You're preparing a work plan for the council to engage on what that will look like. Okay, good. I do think that, some of the data management, it was like there's a specific within the lens of administrative oversight that already exists, but I do think there are specific policy level questions that I would want to grapple with and to support in kind of that direction and what that could look like. So I just want to put that out there. Thank you for that. And then my last question around like, I wrote in my notes like a regional snapshot kind of thing. Something that I struggle with when I read the reports, I mean, the numbers are good. It's great to see like 112% to this, is that we are benchmarking against what is submitted in a work plan to us, right? And that's kind of like absent to relationship to what the need is, or like what's the reality, right? So for example, let's say a county has 500 PSH placements in a year. Amazing. But there's 4,000 need out there, and we're not making it's like we're almost like celebrating these small accomplishments without looking at what's the longer arc that we need to be working towards. And I acknowledge there's limited money. These reports are only covering SHS. I think that the region needs to have a serious conversation about how do we start to present data and the work that we're doing within the ecosystem of all of the homelessness funding. And this is not, I know this is not news to y'all, but like this is a 10-year measure, Voters are expecting results. They are expecting their elected officials to be able to talk about all of these different dollars and how they interact with each other. And seeing that SHS will expire in a few years, I'm feeling that urgency. I know that you have that urgency. This is not about y'all. And so I'm just trying to bring in those questions. And is that something that's possible in terms of collecting these reports to the actual need?
Councilor
And giving this
Gonzalez,
context.
your point right here is actually directly related to your last question. We want to be bringing in those kind of denominators. We should never be afraid of comparing the advancements that counties and service providers have made against the need. That we should not be reluctant to do that, and we fully envision that being part of the proposals we'll be bringing in that work plan to council later this fall.
All right, thank
If
you.
I could just add something to that, I mean, yeah, I think what I was hearing you describe is just like a lot of reports, like can they be more streamlined? Because we do like the Oversight Committee's regional report, for example, does then aggregate all of these quarterly reports, which is like 12 a year, and speaks to that broader context and denominators that Liam is uplifting. So they did do analysis that says like this is how many people we've placed. Of the people that we placed, 92% of them continue to be in housing, which is a huge success.
Yeah.
And we should celebrate that.
Yeah.
And even with that, you know, there was some analysis that they did around how many households are still entering homelessness. So even though we're seeing really great successes in our placement, retention rates, I would say that the program is being successful. There are these other factors that are contributing to homelessness, and as we're looking at the data analysis, and what do we do with that, right? How do we continue to build a system that's responsive to those needs? So I just wanted to offer that there is some of that going on.
Good.
We could certainly be doing a lot of more, which is what Liam is referring to in the SHS reforms proposals that we'll be bringing to you all.
That 92% number is incredible, right? Because like we're saying like, oh, we're doing work that's proven to work, and the voters are like, why are you lying to me? You're like, right, nothing works in this country, whatever, right? Like that's a different sentiment there, but I love that, like, and I think that I want to be equipped with information like that to talk about that. And again, just like it's within the context of what is happening. Anyway, thank you. I will welcome more conversation from the council. If I have more questions, I'll lean in.
I think what I've heard with all of our conversations as we move forward, we have one-dimensional KPIs at this point. And they need to be multidimensional in order to be able to actually track progress, track demand, track capacity of the program going forward. So we actually know who and how we can be able to do this, and to look at where we're having problems and find best practices and be able to track that, right? So again, we don't have a complete systematic look yet, but I know we're working on it, and I'm very excited about that. Councilor Rosenthal and then Councilor Nolan.
Thank you, President Peterson. First of all, I want to comment this. I was reading the reports and looking at the data. It's very complex. I have a lot of technical questions, which, I'll pursue offline or online. But I appreciate all the work that's been done. It seems like it's coming together, and there's a lot of good and real progress that's being made, knowing the things that are opening and the facilities that are becoming available. Everybody seems to note that there's progress being made. I have two general questions and then one comment of caution. The first question is, are there any opportunities for increasing training at the other community colleges? And the other one is, there is a dashboard. You mentioned the emergency response. There was a dashboard that was being created some years ago regarding getting people from the emergency rooms to other things. And I was just wondering if there's any progress on that dashboard that's being created regionally. And then, but I want to have just one other comment if you answer those questions.
I'll jump in, and then we've got Cole Merkel in the back here who will be able to back me up if they need any more detail. But the work with PCC is iterative. So if that turns out to be a major success, then we will look at expanding that to deepen the impact it will have on frontline service workers. Because what we know is that when folks are well trained, when they have the tools, they are able to stay on for longer and provide better service to folks. Is there anything you'd add there, Cole?
Just very briefly, hi all, Cole Merkel, I'm the Regional Capacity Manager. The PCC program is also able to be really hosted anywhere that we want in the region. So PCC obviously has campuses in both Washington and Multnomah County, but we could, if we found a great location in Clackamas County, bring the training to them. And we're developing it to be open source so that it could work at other community colleges or other training areas as well.
Okay.
And your second question, can you remind me again, that was around
Was around
the health share
the
integration?
regional dashboard to people who go into emergency room, which is often what people do, can connect them with services region-wide.
Yeah, that's part of the really exciting work that's happening right now with HealthShare being able to secure the status sharing agreement with Multnomah County and then with the other two counties to be able to do that level of system integration and analysis. So that data is being ran and folks are being able to see that in the system. Could that ever turn into an external dashboard? I think we'd have to like weigh the pros and cons around privacy and like what that would look like. But the data that you're reflecting on is currently available and staff are able to like use it, which is where we're seeing some of the really great impacts that I described earlier today.
For the first time. This is new data that's currently being analyzed by health professionals and home services professionals at the same time, so it's pretty exciting. But it's really the first step in a new frontier.
Yeah. And the comment I want to make is I recently working with a group that's in Washington County that's developing sort of a concept and resolution regarding solving the homeless problem and developing housing. And their approach seems to be somewhat simplistic, and it is clear that the public in general does not understand the complexity. I mean, I don't even understand, I'm sure you do, but I doubt that council understands all the nuances. So the public, one of the problems we're going to have going forward is simplifying it in a meaningful way so that the public understands that this is not a simple process. Dealing with homelessness is a very complex process. Dealing with housing at the various different levels is a very complex process, and they're integrated in a very complex way. I see this, when I saw this resolution, I go, oh, boy, there's a lot of education that's going to be needed here, and I think that this is something, if we want to, and we do want to extend the SHS program, is something that we're going to have to really grapple with. That's just, I think, a reality that we're faced.
Great, thank you. Councilor Nolan.
Thank you. Thanks for this report. I'm intrigued and encouraged by several pieces in it, and I want a little bit more expansion on what we've talked about here. And we've had questions already about the HealthShare agreement. Very positive move, critical, interdependent, successful health outcomes for these individuals rely on successful housing outcomes, and they have to be done together. I'm glad we're moving forward on that. I'd like a little more information about what Metro's role in bringing HealthShare into that conversation and bringing HealthShare to the point of having an agreement with Multnomah County. And by extension, do you have intentions in the near term to be that matchmaker between HealthShare and the other two counties?
The answer to the last question is yes. We've seen a lot of success with this particular project. Yep. For the first time in my career, I'm seeing people talk to each other and align in a way that I haven't in healthcare and homeless services. I could talk about the system all day long, but what really matters is the impact to the people that we're serving. We're talking about people with schizophrenia, people with substance use disorders, and as Yesenia mentioned earlier, we've already seen some of the frequency with which they go to the emergency room decline and the frequency with which they go to their primary care physicians increase. I mean,
are these members of HealthShare?
Yes.
So they're covered under the Oregon Health Plan?
That's correct.
Okay.
Which means the data is accurate when they overlap it with HMIS. To your first point, we would love to provide you with a briefing. We'd be happy to bring our staff as well as HealthShare staff to provide you with a briefing. We could even consider a work session on it. We love this project and we want to share as much information with you as possible.
I'm very interested, and I'll defer to you whether the council has an interest in getting into how that works.
I think at the very least, we can provide you with a briefing.
Great. That leads to the second area I'm interested in. And you mentioned it, Liam, and you referred to it as well, that SHS is a significant and generous source of funding that the voters have made available to us, but those are not the only dollars involved in housing, and certainly not in the coordination of housing and healthcare. Where do you see opportunities or needs at a executive staff level or at an elected official level for moving the region to go beyond data sharing? And we'll give you information that helps you fill out your KPI score sheet to, okay, we've got this collective regional issue that is resistant to efforts that have been made so far. How do we take all the resources that are available and collectively say, okay, these dollars are the freest, least restricted. We're going to find a way to invest them in the services that no one else is funding. Or these have tough restrictions at a federal or state level, so we're going to spend those in this area and supplement it with perhaps SHS dollars. What I'm envisioning, perhaps ambitiously, but we've got the team that can do it, but I'm envisioning where some table, the coordinating committee, whatever, under the new structure, sits down and deploys the resources, financial and human, to optimum effect for outcomes on the ground.
I love that question. Thank you very much, Councillor Nolan. A few things in response. We've been very transparent and very clear with our partners and with Council that the first step to achieving what you want to achieve is actually having transparency around those other funding sources. We currently don't have that. And so we want to get to a place in this next chapter of SHS, after we brief you on the work plan this fall, where we can go to our county partners and say, just the very thing you mentioned, which is we would all do this better if we had line of sight of each funding source, the ratio with which we provide these investments to create an actual system. I think there is a positive side of the coin and a negative side of the coin that is going to get us there. I think the positive side of the coin is the work we've done already around healthcare. We've made investments from our admin into HealthShare, but also the counties have used regional investment funds to hire people to contribute to that work. So we're already seeing that, that work happening and leveraging Medicaid, for example. The negative side of the coin are the cuts at the state level and the federal level. We are likely going to be running out of federal funding and state funding in the near term. It's already happening. The state cuts to eviction prevention are having very real impacts right now. Folks are going to be homeless. That means more people are going to become homeless because of these cuts. So people are going to be forced to take a look at the revenue sources that we are generating locally and how we can best deploy them. It's not good news, but it is one of the forces that is going to compel us to do the thing that you were just describing.
And one final one that follows up on the comment made earlier by Councillor Gonzalez, and that is, I have to celebrate the shift in thinking from throughput to outcomes. That, yes, we have to be mindful of how much service and what kinds of services are needed to support and move individuals along the continuum. But the objective, which I'm hearing all of you declare today, is to move, acknowledging the odds you just mentioned, Liam, about funding, but to move toward functional zero. That we do that by supporting individuals or families in moving into permanent supportive housing or in avoiding eviction or things like that. But I'm just delighted to see that and recognize that it's been a journey to get here, and you have found a path. I appreciate it.
Any other comments? No, thank you. Again, so appreciated, and good movement forward. We look forward to the rest of this fall and completing a series of reforms. Thanks. All right, with that, counselors, we'll move on to Chief Operating Officer Communication.
Thank you so much, Council President Peterson. Good morning, Council. Just want to reflect that over the last couple of weeks, I've been able to celebrate employee service awards, both folks who just hit their first milestone at 5 years and other folks who hit their 35-year, 25, 30, 35-year milestones. It's always an opportunity to reflect on the incredible work that we do, but also on the incredible stories that live within the walls or open spaces that we have here at Metro. So just really want to appreciate all those folks who we celebrated, and especially the 5-year cohort. That's my cohort, and we all started in the pandemic, and it's great to be 5 years out from that and celebrating with each other in person and sharing a little food and just really reflecting on our service. So appreciate them and appreciate you for supporting it all. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Communication, anything to Counselor Gonzalez?
Thanks, President Peterson. Earlier this week, we had Greater Portland Inc.'s annual economic summit. At the summit, Elizabeth Mazzara-Myers received an award for Greater Portland Champion, which is a big deal. She leads Westside Economic Alliance, which we're one of their cornerstone partners through our economic development investments from our sponsorship program. We've had a board position there for a very long time as well. So work is being recognized and elevated, and I just want to congratulate Elizabeth on the record here. May it forever ring in the halls of Metro's records. Importantly, too, at the annual summit, Monique Claiborne, who's the president and CEO of GPI, announced that in November there's a delegation of Portland area leaders going to New York City on kind of a trade mission, talking about economic development and a few other things. A few of you know this, but I will be attending that trip. And so just wanted to share, just in case I haven't sent that, and also just kind of send signals that I will be on that trip. So if you see me doing that, that is why.
Thank you. Counselor Rosenthal.
Thank you, Chair Peterson. Just a couple things. First of all, last week, I think last Tuesday, we haven't met since then. There was a Chehalem Mountain visit. The parks is part of a series. They're going to be doing regional visits to some of the park. There's been a lot of progress at Chehalem Mountain, and it looks very nice. A lot of forestry goes on there, and there's a lot of work. We had a lot of presentations on the science. I believe Councilor Simpson and Councilor Gonzalez were there as well. And then I also want to report the first of a series of the fall mixers happened last Thursday. That was the Durham mixer, happened just across the border at a sports club, because Durham is a small city. It was quite successful. I want to thank Councilors Gonzalez and Lewis for attending. I assume they had good conversations. They seemed to be busily engaged during the entire time. There were a lot of good discussions on parks for example, parks in Durham and regional economic development in the Tualatin, Sherwood, Wilsonville area, and on transportation issues. So there was a lot of good discussions. People lasted quite longer than anticipated. The food was excellent. Staff did a great job of preparation. And we actually had, good representation from as far away as Troutdale. Also, we had River Grove, which is, as I mentioned to MPAC, we sometimes forget some of the really smaller communities that are in our network, but it was very nice to see them there. So there's some issues, and it was a very good meeting. Everybody had, I believe, a pretty good time.
Awesome, thank you.
Oh, the next one is in October in West Lynn, and then there's one in November in Gresham.
Great, thank you. Councilors, I just want to give a very general, very brief update. We, Marisa and I, Kristen and Craig Stroud met with the mayor of Portland about sports-related things going on in the region. There's very little I can share with you publicly about any of this, but I do want to say that we agreed to be coordinated in how we talk about sports in the region and work together, which kind of goes to our prioritization of things that we will be talking about in October through our retreats. We just want to make sure that we are all on the same page, and their request to us was to be very coordinated with them. If we get any request as individual counselors or as a council from any group, let's figure out how to respond to that if it's given to you as an individual, because negotiations that may come up could ride on just having very clear communication with all the parties involved. And if there's one-off conversations, they're very worried about how that could throw things off. So while you're all independently elected and you can do what you want to do, I just want to ask on behalf of the city of Portland that we just be very coordinated and very communicative about who's reaching out to whom and what they're asking for, and make sure that we bring that information in and share that with the city of Portland. And obviously, none of us can make any commitments on anyone's behalf, but just making sure that we're letting everybody know. Because this time period with the Blazers is going to be very, very important. Was there anything else from that meeting that we are going to have staff coordinating with staff very closely?
I think you covered it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on that? Okay. Anything else for the good of the order?
One thing,
Yes.
your blazer today is absolute fire. I just had to say.
Thank you. Feeling kind of.
We're talking about blazers. I was like, oh, blazer.
I thought I didn't have any blazer colors on. What are you talking about? All right, thank you, and we are adjourned. See you at our next regular.